you have favorite movies sometimes, and they're classics. It's because you really appreciate how well they're made, or you like the story that's told. They're fun, they're entertaining, great. Superman the movie, Star Wars the movie. These movies are great. These are ones that I would definitely hail as my favorites. But every now and then, you come across a movie, and maybe it's some stupid little movie or whatever, but it just identifies. You identify with this movie so much that it just becomes a part of you. And that is the case with this next movie. It was 1994, and the movie is Brainscan. I really want to know how many of you in the chat have seen this movie. This was my high school. Like, it's Edward Furlong first, big deal from Terminator 2 quite recently. And he was everywhere, so he's in it. And then there's he was in also the Aerosmith video Living on the Edge, so their Aerosmith videos are posters all over the place. He lives in this attic, really cool attic space, because his father's never home and his mother had passed away. So he lives in this awesome place that I would have killed to have as a child. And that's a funny way to speak about this movie anyway. But really cool setup with his phone, computer, everything. I mean, it's 1994, so he's still watching a tube television, but it's still got the widescreen, and it's got the speakers, and it's connected to the phone and all this stuff. He's got his virtual assistant Igor, locked into the phone in his computer. Really cool setup, which I would have loved to have had. He's a major horror film fan, which I actually was too, believe it or not, in high school. His friend Kyle, I had a friend exactly like this guy, Kyle. He was a guitarist that I played with. I used to call him Nigel because he reminded me of Nigel Tufnell from Spinal Tap. So many things I just identified with in this movie, and it was I watched it over and over again as a kid. But I think it's also it's on one level. Well, let me tell you who it's by first. I mean, it's a John Flynn film, but it was written by Andrew Kevin Walker, who, if you guys know screenwriters' names, he of course did Seven. I didn't realize that he actually did Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow as well, but he wrote the script for Seven. He wrote, the Brad Pitt film, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. He wrote the script for The Wolfman, which was changed a lot, but, he wrote the script for The Wolfman remake that they did 2010-ish or whatever. So he's a great screenwriter, writes a lot of the kind of films and whatnot that I would like to see. They changed it a little bit. They added the character of Trickster, who's this guy here. It looks like it looks like, when you see the image, it looks like it's going to be a horror film. It's really not. I would say it's more psychological suspense. There are horror elements in it, but Trickster is not like some demonic, terrifying entity. He's actually kind of funny. I don't want to spoil the film, but it's so good. I want to talk about some things. On the one hand, it does kind of operate as just sort of a 90s popcorn, scary popcorn movie or whatever. On one level, you could just look at it like that. But there's something deeper in this story, from the script right into the directing and brought out in the performances. And the idea is that the principal questions Edward Furlong's character, and his character's name is Michael too, which my name is Michael. There's just so many ways I was like, this is my movie, But the principal questions him because he wants to put on hiatus his little horror club at school. And he says, why do you watch these things? Why do you watch these movies? What is the appeal? And his character's like, oh, really? He's like, no, yeah, help me explain. Help me understand what's the appeal of these movies. And all Edward Furlong's character could say is that, well, I guess it's like an escape. And that is a woefully inadequate answer. That's a woefully inadequate reason for just filling your brain with nothing but horror. One of the things this movie helped me realize is that I'm not really a fan of horror. I'm a fan of monster movies. And that's what I say now. And that's what I talk about. I talk about monster movies, and we dissect them and analyze them, because monster movies are a recontextualization and an exploration of good versus evil. And they're an exploration of the shadow self, what lurks in the id of man, and how do we tame and integrate that shadow, and what things should we simply put to death as well within us, and I just love that kind of thing. And I love, straight from the Universal monsters, there they are, being, more empathetic and whatnot, pathos ridden, some of them anyway. to other kind of monster movies. I mean, even all the way to Halloween, and once we get past Halloween, the original John Carpenter's Halloween, I kind of lose interest in the whole horror slasher, genre at that point, because even though you could still argue there's some reasons for this or that and that and this and so forth. Yeah, sure. But it kind of, in my mind anyway, it becomes irreconcilably gratuitous at that point. Much of it anyway, a lot of it anyway. But I love a good thriller. I love a good monster movie. But this is why I'll never say I'm a horror film. And the story deals with that, because the game, the Brainscan game that Michael ends up playing, is a hypnotic like game. It's supposed to be virtual reality somewhat, but the flashes of light on the screen kind of, put yourself in a brain state or whatever, and it makes you feel like you are the killer. Because as Trickster tells him in the game, if you want to experience fear, the terror is in the doing. Become the murderer, and so it's like what we were saying, with the KOTOR game, playing the dark side version of it, but this was way more intense because you actually feel like you're going into somebody's house and grabbing a butcher knife from their kitchen and stabbing them to death, and it gives him that experience. Now, of course, the catch, and you get this from the trailers if you're watching the trailers back in the day, so I'm not spoiling anything. The catch is that he wakes up the next day and realizes, oh, that murder really took place. Oh crap, that means that was really me murdering the person, and I won't give away any more than that, but it's so great. Trickster's character was T. Ryder Smith plays the Trickster. Phenomenal job. Frank Langella is in this well as the police officer. Great. I mean, Frank Langella, Dracula, Skeletor, Perry White. I mean, that guy's epic. So it has a great cast. And the character of the Trickster was added later in the movie making, because he's in the original script, it was just a voice on the phone that would be talking to Michael and pushing him to play the next disc and so forth. But they added the Trickster, and some people speculate maybe that was to kind of start a franchise, like get a character that they could make extra movies for or whatever, and he would be this monster's face character that carried through other films. It never became a franchise, which I think is such a shame. I mean, especially today with like crowdfunded comics and everything. A lot of companies, I just got the comics last year for Fright Night, the Tom Holland's, Fright Night extended. I would love to see Kevin Walker, do do some comics, sequels to this game or something like that, or movie. But anyway, the Trickster shows up, and he really is, they named him Trickster, and he truly does embody the archetypal trickster in the sense that a trickster blurs boundaries, because the Trickster is blurring boundaries within Michael's psyche, within his own mind, within his own moralities and whatnot, because he sees nothing wrong with watching all of this horror, with glorying in all of this death and fear and gore. Nothing wrong with it, because it's just a movie, it's just a game. Hey, look, I'm not out there doing it myself. And Trickster asks him the question, real, unreal, what's the difference as long as you don't get caught? And really sort of pushes the issue, which is just so freaking good. This movie is so much more than just some silly, as I said, on one level, and maybe I watched it like this the first time I did too, it operates as just sort of the popcorn scary film, whatever. But you dig into this, there's so much more. And some of it could have been maybe a little, I don't know, if you're looking at storylines and threads or whatever. There's a dog, a German Shepherd, that shows up, which is very much the stand-in for Michael's conscience. The dog shows up a couple of times to possibly have Michael be found out, like he's trying to hide evidence or he's trying to hide from the neighborhood watch or whatever. And Michael keeps saying to the dog, look, I'll never ask you for anything else if you just do this one thing for me. Just, leave me that or go away or whatever. That's a really bizarre, weird thing to say to a dog, a random dog that you don't even know. Ask you for anything? What? But you realize that the dog is kind of a symbol of his own conscience, his own desire to be caught, in some way. And those are the little concessions you make with your own conscience. Once you start down a road, hopefully not killing people, but start down any sort of road that is morally ambiguous or morally wrong or whatever, you start making little concessions with your conscience. You start to feel a little pang about that, but then you say, no, I'm not going to worry about that, because this is just this one time. It's just this special context and this and that. And then once you make that little concession, it becomes easier to make another little concession, and so forth and so forth. So it's one of my favorite movies, Brainscan. It always has been. I hadn't seen it. I rewatched it this week, and that was the first time in, I guess, since I was a teenager. Man, and it held up. I was kind of curious. I was like, because you watch some movies when you're younger and they meant so much to you, and then you watch them again and you're like, what did I see in this thing again? But no, this was like one of those what do they call them? Your core memories. Sometimes you have core memories that build up your personality. This was one of my core movies, I think, that just hit at a specific time of my development or whatever in high school, and it worked so well, and I still love it to this day. It's got a really cool soundtrack. Unfortunately, they didn't like Aerosmith's not on the soundtrack. I guess rights and money wise. But there's also a really cool picture of Alice Cooper, a poster of Alice Cooper on Michael's refrigerator in his attic there. And of course, I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan. So I'm like, yes, that's awesome. And I don't know, it's so great. I even told Sound Engraver last night, the girl, the next door neighbor that Michael has a crush on, he's like, perving on her, not perving on her, but like spying on her some. She actually looks a little bit like Sound Engraver now. So I'm like, man, did I sort of subconsciously feel drawn and attracted to you because you look like this girl from this movie? Of course, Sound Engraver is way hotter than any girl in any movie. But so anyway, like I said, I really think if you like this kind of stuff, you would really like Brainscan. Of course, I love it, having the connection that I have to it. T. Ryder Smith he does such a great job as Trickster. And I thought surely this man has like done a ton of things since then, and he has, but it's been mostly like television credits and whatnot. And I guess he was like a Shakespearean actor. That's why he kind of got this role anyway for the language and whatnot. But man, I just thought he does such a great job. I thought he would have done even bigger things since then. It's a shame. Yeah, deals with the shadow self. Just cover my notes here to make sure I didn't forget anything. The terror is in the doing, of course. Talk about the dog representing this and that. So yeah. And I mean, when you get a proven writer like Andrew Kevin Walker, who's done Seven's, I'm glad I saw Seven. I love the idea of Seven and the psychology behind it, but I would never watch it again because it's just, I don't know, it's just too much for my own psyche. But it's really, really good, But then I also loved Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, and of course Wolfman. I understand that those have probably changed a lot from his original drafts, but when you get proven writers that you like their stuff, go for it. Play it again, Michael. Play the next disc, Michael. Play the next disc. What does he say? There's so many great lines. I don't want to give anything away. I told Sound Engraver because one of them is so funny when he's telling Michael, he says, you have to play the next disc because there was a witness. And he's like, well, 2 witnesses if you count me, but I'll never tell. And he does this whole shtick where he's like, even if they pump my body full of 1,000,000 volts, and he puts his finger in a lamp and his electricity flies through him. And this is the Trickster and all his makeup and special effects and everything. He's like, even if they bend back my fingers one by one and you hear his fingers snapping. He said, even if they gouge out my eyes, and he digs his nails into his eyes, you see blood pouring down. Really horrific scene. And then he goes, but please, no country western music. Every man has his limits. That's just like that's the best way to explain the Trickster, because he's unsafe. He's dangerous. He's not safe, but he's also funny. He's not horrific. He's working to help Michael. I don't want to give anything away. Anyway, it's great. It's great. And I also utterly loathe country western music. So I identify with that as well. Anyway, that's all I got for tonight. Let me check in the chat here and see what's been going on, because I don't want to just ignore people.